There's always a Russian ghost somewhere. They said they've had direct evidence. The truth of the matter is the people who colluded with the Russians were the Democrats. The Democrats paid Christopher Steele, a former British spy, to get dirt on Trump from Russia. That's just a fact.
Congressman Devin Nunes there on the whole Russian collusion illusion. A ton of reaction now, 3 days after the summary of the Mueller report was made public. Republican Jim Jordan with me now. And, sir, how you doing? Good morning to you. I want to take you through a couple things. Washington Post, Adam Schiff apparently gave an interview with them last, I guess, 10 or 12 hours or so. Here is the quote that Schiff has. Undoubtedly, there is collusion, he says. We will continue to investigate the counterintelligence issues. That is the president or people around him compromised in any way by a hostile foreign power? It doesn't appear that was any part of Mueller's report. Just go ahead and answer that collusion answer there first, and I'll get to more.
I mean, come on, did he not read Bill Barr's letter? The Attorney General said there was absolutely no collusion. The Attorney General also points out in his letter that there were multiple opportunities for Trump campaign officials to work with Russians, but they didn't do it. So in other words, Russia dangled the forbidden fruit in front of people all the time, and they didn't bite. So, I mean, I don't know how Chairman Schiff can make that statement. There was absolutely no collusion. Think about what Bill Barr said. He said there are no new indictments coming, there are no sealed indictments, there's no collusion, and there's no obstruction. It could not be a stronger, more definitive statement on this entire investigation than what the Attorney General made. Total vindication for the President.
All right, we will continue.
As I've said many times, totally good news for the country.
But he said we will continue to investigate the counterintelligence issues. I'd imagine if the media goes along with that, you'll probably hear more about it. Let's see. Swalwell, the Democrat from California. It's okay, Jim Jordan, if you can hear me again, I'll try and keep this alive here. Do you got me now? All right. Well, just give it a beat here. I just want to take you back to the story last night with Martha McCallum. She had Eric Swalwell on, a Democrat from California. He was talking about the dossier and the fact that he believes everything that's still in it. Here is the exchange from last night.
So it doesn't bother you that the Clinton campaign paid for a dossier to be put together by someone who had all kinds of ties to intelligence and put together something that turned out to be not necessarily factual? That part of
which part of it hasn't been proved factual?
Well, Christopher Steele himself said it was not a finished work product, and you know everyone who analyzed it said, well, I mean,
which part was not proved factual?
I mean, are you serious?
So this is in the bloodstream still, sir.
Yeah, no, it is. I lost it for a second, Bill, but I think I got most of it. The dossier, don't take my words for it. Take Jim Comey. He said it was salacious and unverified. So Jim Comey, even he said this dossier was not accurate. We all know it's National Enquirer garbage. But the scary thing is what Devin Nunes said, that they took this document, dressed it all up, paid for by the Clinton campaign, took this document, dressed it all up, took it to the secret court to get the warrant to go spy on the Trump campaign. That's how this whole crazy thing started. And that is what's wrong. And those people who did that, they're the ones we need to investigate and hold accountable.
One more thing. I don't know if you saw the president on the Hill yesterday. I know he was meeting with some lawmakers. He said the following about, well, listen to it for yourself, and we'll characterize it.
I don't want to say that, but I think you know the answer.
What do you think the answer is?
I didn't quite hear it, Bill. I'm sorry.
He was asked, do you think it reached the west wing of the Obama White House? That was the question.
Oh.
And the answer was, I don't want to say that, but I think you know the answer. What do you believe the answer is?
Here's what I know. When it was President-elect Trump, Chuck Schumer, one of the top Democrats in our government, back in January of 2017 said this: when you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways to Sunday at getting back at you. Now think about that statement. That is scary. The intelligence community getting back at President Trump for what? For winning the election? But the idea that you have a top Democrat official say that is scary. So how high it goes, I don't know. But this is why we do need to investigate that, because this kind of activity is never supposed to happen in this great country. But we know that it did. And that's why Devin Nunes, Mark Meadows, myself, and a number of others are so committed to getting to the truth so that it never happens again.
Jim Jordan, thank you for your time. I guess the IG report will tell us a little bit in a couple months from now. We await that. Yep. Thank you, sir, from Capitol.
Thank you.
Well, not only is it March Madness, it's Mueller Madness. Thanks to the New York Post,
You can now vote for your top picks when it comes to the media personalities who got it the most wrong about the Mueller probe. From theories of collusion to predicting jail time for the president and all the theories in between. Here to explain and break down his final 4 picks, New York Post op-ed editor Sohrab Ahmari. Sohrab, good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So what exactly were you trying to accomplish with the Mueller Madness bracket?
Well, 2 things. The first one is to hold accountable the people who peddled the most nonsensical nonsense, the constant collusion hysteria that we've been suffering through for 2 years.
Right.
And second, just to have fun, because it is March Madness. I'm not a sports fan, but I'm a news junkie.
Right.
So this is my way of pitching into that fun.
Okay, so you were trying to have fun, but a lot of people have reacted, you know, they're a little angry at you.
Yeah. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary, tweeted the image with our New York Post email address where we're inviting people to send their own votes, madness@newyorkpost.com. And a lot of people took that to mean that this was a White House production. And they said, why are you using taxpayer money to make these fake brackets? Is this a White House enemies list? But in fact, it's news people poking fun at other news people.
And you actually use some of the things people said. So we're going to look at your top 4. The first category, we're going to talk about cable. And your winner is... Roll the montage.
We're about to find out if the new president of our country is going to do what Russia wants. Whether or not Russia had help, whether they had Confederates inside the Trump campaign when they launched this attack, the presidency is effectively a Russian op.
Why did she make your top 4?
Well, this is my personal top 4, not our readers, but just for 2 years, this steady diet of fear that she'd really sort of hooked her viewers on, going so far as to say, what should we do? How do we prepare if the presidency is a Russian op, quote unquote?
Right. I heard that a lot.
That's right, yes. And just the sheer word, by the way, I'm a Russia hawk myself, but just the insane degree of thinking that the Russian government has reached deep into our government was just so much and so funny in retrospect.
Well, according to Mueller, the president is not a Russian operative. Meanwhile, in the category of network, ladies and gentlemen, here's your winner.
He goes to jail, he goes to jail, he goes to jail. Lock him up. Lock them up.
You had so many to choose from. Why Joy Behar?
That clip speaks for itself. I mean, the degree of wish casting and the idea that the president's about to go to jail and then to do a dance and jig about it on the show is just so funny.
All right. Meanwhile, in print, you had many to contend with. Your winner, Max Boot, the columnist, he wrote on July 25th, 2018, President Trump's mantra is no collusion, something he says as if sheer mind-numbing repetition can make it true. Why did you put Max at the top?
Because unlike the others who at least are entertainers and sort of try to be funny, Max is so dour and humorless, so he adds to the paranoia his particular brand of dourness and, as I said, humorlessness. And the fact that, as it turned out, the president was right. There was a reason that no collusion was his mantra.
And when it comes to Twitterati, people who are online saying things in 140 characters or less, your winner is Lawrence Tribe, the very famous attorney. He wrote, when Representative Adam Schiff says there's evidence of both collusion and obstruction, you can take that to the bank. Trump, beware. And just the fact that he knows so much about the law, for him to say those things, it has a certain gravity to it.
This is a serious man. He's a serious constitutional scholar. And so for him to trade in that prestige for Twitter crankery is kind of sad, too.
Twitter crankery? Yeah. Okay, so these were your top 4. I understand in the New York Post very shortly you're going to be doing your readers.
Yes, but we're not going to reveal that. Yes.
Okay. Can you give us what about an honorable mention with your list?
Well, for my particular would be Jonathan Chait, who predicted that the president of New York Magazine predicted that the president had been a Russian asset since 1987.
Wow, look at that. It's a little crazy. Very good. Sohrab Ahmari from the New York Post, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck with your bracket. Let's
Cheers.
see how it all works.
Let me just tell you exactly what my message is. The Republican Party will soon be known as the party of health care. You watch.
So there's the president in Capitol Hill yesterday talking about health care. Both parties pivoting now to this issue. Trump administration asking a federal court to strike down the Affordable Care Act as unconstitutional. With that, it's back in the forefront yet again. John Delaney wants to be the Democratic nominee. He's a former Maryland congressman and with me now live in studio. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for being in
My
here
pleasure.
today.
My pleasure.
Let me get to health care and the issues in a moment.
Sure.
When the summary of Mueller's report came out on Sunday, how disappointed were you?
Well, I wasn't necessarily disappointed. I mean, as an American, at some level, I'm very happy that the President of the United States was not prosecuted for colluding with a foreign power, right? So at some level, I was happy, A, the report was over, because I think we've spent way too much time talking about this. And B, obviously, I think at some level every American should be happy at least with the headline results. I do think that we should see the report, obviously.
I think we will.
I do too. And I think the American people, we're never going to have closure on this thing unless we actually read the report, get it out there, and then we can move on. I know we're going to talk about health care. To me, that's a much more important thing for us to be spending time on.
And we will. It appears, though, some of your colleagues are not willing to move on. Yes. Would Democrats be smarter to pivot back to the issues?
Absolutely. I think it's always better to talk about things that really matter to the American people, whether it's health care, which we're going to talk about, whether it's the kind of things we need to do to partner with rural America to help them deal with some of the struggles they have, whether it's talking about building infrastructure or creating a federal digital privacy policy. These are things that actually matter to the American people. Obviously, the Mueller report was very important, and it took a lot of time and attention, and we should see the results. But we have to balance. Our job is actually to do things to benefit the American people. And I think we need to get back to focusing on that as Democrats and Republicans.
On the issues, here's what you tweeted on Valentine's Day on the Green New Deal. You said it's been proposed. It's about as realistic as Trump saying Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Let's focus on what's possible, not what's impossible. You sound like a doubter right there.
Well, it's not, listen, I think climate change is a huge issue. It's been one of the most important things I've focused on in the Congress. But the way I would deal with it is very different. I'd put a carbon tax in place. I'd take all the revenues and give it right back to the American people to change behavior. I'd increase our investment in basic research fivefold because we need new innovations in kind of storage and transmission technologies. And I'd create a market for something called negative emissions technologies. So these are machines that actually exist that take carbon out of the atmosphere. They're subscale and they're too expensive. But if we could create a market for them, like we did for wind and solar, we could bring down the price dramatically. So I'm for market-based solutions.
Let's see how far you go with that idea.
Sure.
I wonder how far left your party's moving. Last week you had the Electoral College push, Supreme Court changes. People were talking about lowering the voting age. Medicare for All has been out there for some while. You support universal health care, but you do not support Medicare for All.
That's right.
What's the difference?
Well, I think everyone should have health care as a right in this country, as a basic human right. It's also smart economic policy. You know, when I started my first business 20-something years ago and became the youngest CEO in the history of the New York Stock Exchange, the only reason I was able to leave my job and start my business is because my wife worked at a law firm that had health care. So things like, smart economic policy argue that everyone should have health care as a right and it should be portable. But I think it's a big mistake to make the government the only payer of health care. And the reason for that is the government doesn't pay enough, right? Medicaid only pays 80% of cost. Medicare pays 95% of cost. And commercial insurance pays about 115% of cost. So if the government were the only payer in health care, which is what the Medicare for All bill proposes, there's no evidence that the government will ever pay the cost of health care. And that, to me, would lead to a reduction in quality and access.
I know it's one of your big issues, and I hope you come back, because I've got a whole list of things to talk about. It's a crowded field. Can you get on the stage?
Yes.
You can.
Yeah, well, there's a polling standard. There's we're doing well in the polling standard.
I got you at 1%.
Yeah, we just need one more.
You need to.
We need 3 polls at 1%. We made the 1% poll in Iowa. We made the national poll, like your poll, and then there's probably going to be some other polls between now and then.
Hope you come back. John Delaney.
Thanks for having me.
We have a lot more to talk about.